Hi guys, thanks for joining me once again for another round of Saturday Stories. 4 stories for you today. I hope you're going to enjoy these. Just to let you know, the background video that you're actually watching now, I shot last week. I began on Soi 6, which leads on to Soi 4. I walked along Soi 4, onto Sukhumvit and all the way down to the Erawan Shrine. Next week I'll be showing the part 2 of this video where I walk back but on the other side of the road, so different things to see. Okay, let's get into the first of 4 stories today.
สวัสดีค่ะ
My story begins in November 2023. I travelled with a friend and both of us were single. We started off in Pattaya where I met a few girls. One girl I talked to on Thaifriendly was 24 years old and said she had only been in Pattaya for 3 days. The original plan was to start with some aerobics, then go out for a few hours and then return to the hotel for more aerobics. She seemed very timid and almost scared, so after the first aerobic session, we parted ways. I guess she was really telling the truth about just arriving in Pattaya recently. I also talked to a massage girl on Thaifriendly. Let's call her Kip. Kip is 41 years old from Laos, and she is beautiful. Not a stunner, but beautiful. She came to my hotel for a 2-hour massage for 1,000 baht. Massage only and no aerobics. I asked Kip to come by a few days later for a 3-hour massage. I explained to Kip I wanted a very sensual 3-hour massage but no aerobics. That massage was the best I've ever had. When we were done, I gave Kip the agreed amount with a nice tip. Kip tried to return the tip, saying that was not the price. She does not speak English at all. So I had to use a translator to explain that the extra was for her, and she still tried to give the tip back. I had to convince her to take the tip, and she was very grateful. My next stop was Patong in Phuket. When we both got our hotel rooms, they smelled like bug spray. My friend was given a different room, but was told he could only have it for 2 nights. My room had the bug spray odour, but not as bad as his. After it got dark that night, my room was overrun with bugs. I had to sleep with the lights on to keep the bugs away. The next morning, we met for breakfast and went out looking for a new hotel. We found a few that were okay but had not made up our minds on which one to choose. Then we found the KIK hotel and decided to stay there. The hotel is very nice and clean and the rooftop pool is nice. The free breakfast is not great but average but does the job. The first night at the new hotel, I met the 2 tall girls from my previous story. I have attached a picture for your eyes only. On the second day, I realised I had left some clothes at my hotel back in Pattaya. I called the hotel and they said they would hold them for me until I returned in April. Kip had been messaging me since we last met and I asked her if she would bring my clothes to Patong and stay a few days and I would pay for her flight. She said she had never been on an aeroplane before and she wouldn't do it alone, but she would come by bus. Kip took a 20-hour bus ride just to see me for a few days. We had an amazing 4 days together with plenty of aerobics. Kip has a very shy way about her, and even though she is a massage girl, it seems that meeting for aerobics is not a normal thing for her. She had to leave a few hours before me to catch her bus for the long ride back to Pattaya. I walked her down to the taxi, and that's when the crying started. I don't mean a few tears. I mean all out sobbing and her not being able to catch her breath. We have kept in touch ever since my return home to the USA and she has never asked me for money. We have done a few video calls, but since she doesn't speak English, they are very short calls. But it's nice to see her. I asked Kip to stay with me on my next trip to Thailand. 4 days in Bangkok, 3 days in Koh Samui and 8 days in Pattaya, and she agreed. Now for part 2 of this story. I arrived in Bangkok in April 2024 and Kip met me at my hotel. We had a great 4 days, then flew to Koh Samui. This was her first time on a plane and she seemed to really enjoy it. After the first day in Koh Samui, I got sick and ended up in the Bangkok hospital for 2 days. Luckily, I bought insurance for that. I was very sick the first day and a half and Kip wouldn't leave my side. She was very scared and didn't know what to do. She wouldn't even leave me to go and get something to eat. While in the hospital, a lady came to my room with a clipboard and a gift bag. The clipboard had my bill and the gift bag had the credit card machine inside it. I wasn't sure if the hospital was going to let me leave in time to catch my flight to Pattaya, but they let me leave and told me that once in Pattaya, I had to check into the hospital there. Once in Pattaya, Kip said there was a hospital right near my hotel. When we got there, it was nowhere near as nice as the Bangkok hospital. That's when Kip said it was a government-run hospital. We left there and I went to Bangkok hospital in Pattaya. I was there for only a half a day getting more blood work and antibiotics, then I was released. Bangkok Hospital in Koh Samui and Bangkok Hospital in Pattaya are great hospitals and they all speak great English. 2 days in Koh Samui Hospital cost me $3,100 and a half a day in Pattaya Hospital cost me $300. When I was released, I was about 90% back to normal so I could enjoy the rest of my holiday. We were in Pattaya for Songkran, which was a lot of fun, but I will plan around that on future trips. On the main Songkran day, a lot of things closed and it is impossible to get a taxi if you need one. While in Pattaya, Kip showed me the room where she stays. She has only been in this room for 2 months and she lives alone. It's a very small room, but it does have air conditioning. When I left Pattaya to return home, the crime wasn't as bad as the last time. I had a great time with Kip, but I still have to remind myself that she is a massage girl. We still talk on the Line app a couple of times a week. And when I return in November 2024, I will spend a few days in Patong alone before going to Pattaya to meet up with Kip for the remainder of the trip. I have also sent a picture of me and Kip. I am not sure if things will progress with Kip or if I even really want them to, but I guess that is another story. Lastly, a bit of info for your listeners about their Thai girlfriends visiting the USA. It is almost impossible for Thai girls to get a tourist visa to the USA, and if they are affiliated with bars or massage shops, the answer is a flat no. The only way is a marriage visa. I would never consider that, and I don't recommend it either, but that's just me. So one thing I'd say on that story, if you are planning to take a girl abroad on a vacation, I have heard that in the US, it's very, very difficult to take a girl just for a holiday. I do some videos with a company called Thai Legal Protection, and they deal with lawyers. They have Thai lawyers and deal with various contracts and things like that. One of the partners there, David, I interviewed him, and that's something they specialize in, is trying to get visas for Thai girls to visit your home country. It's easier for some countries than it is for others, but you can go back and watch that video, and David explains the difficulties getting a visa for a girl to visit the USA. I'll try and dig up that video and I'll put it in a link to it at the end of this video. Right, let's jump straight into the second of 4 stories today. My name is Carl. I have been following your channel religiously for the last 3 years. I've even gone back to watch all the videos that you made before I knew about your channel. As I write this, I'm in Bangkok staying at the Grand Four Wings Hotel in Bang Kapi. This is the last week of July 2024. And I came to Thailand for the first time last week on the 24th. I am an Australian of African origin and I live in Western Australia. I was introduced to your channel by a work colleague who is a long-time Falang visitor and has been to Thailand no less than 40 times in the past 15 years. As I followed your channel, I noted that many foreigners come to the land of smiles to seek fun, adventure and love. I came primarily to have a medical procedure done, but since I was aware of the beauty and gorgeousness of Thai women, medical tourism was my first reason to be here, with the possibility of also finding a life partner. I am 48 years old and consider myself physically athletic for my age, which brings me to my story. I work at a mine in Australia and we do what is called fly in, fly out. Basically, we work far from where we live since mines are usually far in the middle of the Australian outback. We fly to work and stay at a mining camp while we work for 12 hours a day for a period of 2 weeks. After that, we fly back home for a 7-day rest and repeat the cycle, which is massively boring and makes you seek activities to pass the time, like going to the gym, playing bingo, or drinking at the camp wet mess. Not much to choose from. I chose the gym, but not like an aspiring Mr. Olympia, Just going to keep fit for work and hopefully keep looking younger to attract the ladies with the hope of finding a life partner since I divorced back in 2019. My second divorce, the first was in 2013. Over the course of 3 years, I have had a growth on my left abdomen. In Australia's, doctors don't encourage its removal since it's not threatening to health, as it is simply fat accumulation under the skin. Its removal is not regarded as a medical procedure, but rather a cosmetic one. As I kept working out in the gym at work, the growth became steadily noticeable, and now it is bothering me since my torso looks a bit deformed. The fact that both public and private medical aids in Australia do not come up with this condition, since they are cosmetic, makes their removal very expensive. This is what brought me to Thailand. When I arrived here, I started searching for clinics where I could have the growth removed, hopefully by liposuction. Having taken notes from your educational videos and the constant warnings about finding love with bar girls, it was high on my awareness list that if I met a potential lover, it would have to be miles away from the bar or club scene. 2 days after I started my search, I went to one plastic surgery clinic in Sukhumvit, Mia Clinic. While there, my attention was seized by a lady who is the consultant assisting clients in filling up medical forms and taking weight and height measurements before meeting the surgeon for a consultation. In my situation, the surgeon recommended that my growth was too large and it would be safer to have it done at a big hospital like the Bangkok hospital. Obviously, I was taking notes from what the doctor was telling me, but at the same time, I was also brainstorming how I could get the contact details of the beautiful consultant. I told myself that it was fine if I missed out on having the procedure done at their clinic, but I shouldn't miss out on dating the pretty consultant. As the doctor finished with me, the consultant led me to a room where I had to take off the medical robe gown used during medical check assessment and put my clothes back on. Before she left the room, I asked for her line ID, making it seem as if I needed it later for assistance or clarification of what the doctor had said. She promptly gave it to me, and I smiled all the way back to the hotel. Later that evening, I texted her. I didn't mince my words, I went straight to the point. Greetings, thank you so much for your assistance earlier today at your clinic. But on a different matter, may I take you out for lunch if you're free tomorrow? She did reply, very surprised, I reckon. No, I didn't get the date the following day, but I did get a lunch meeting 2 days later, and she brought 2 of her work friends. The clinic is close to a KFC outlet, so we walked to it. I do know from you, Peter, that usually on first dates, Thai women always bring a friend or two to seek acknowledgement or validation of the potential new man. So I acted like a true gentleman and was seemingly ever smiling, of course, without overdoing it. The lunch date went well, according to me, but I waited to see my ratings according to her friends. After I got back to the hotel, the text came in. Thank you for lunch, Ka. I knew I had passed. As I write to you, we are now dating and have planned to visit her family, father, brother, grandmother, whom she lives with here in Bangkok. Her mum has passed away. There's been no aerobics and I'm not in a hurry for that. I really intend to marry her if it goes well. The main reason I wrote this is that I have taken all the tips and advice that you give, and I'm hoping that this will have a great ending. Though I know sometimes we seem to do everything right and still end up with undesirable results. Crash and burn, as you always say, haha. While this relationship is ongoing, I will keep you informed on the progress. So this story is going to be like a soap series, so to say. Thank you so much, Peter, for your channel, and I hope while I'm still here we can meet for a beer. P.S. I have attached a photo of us together. Note this story is only exclusive to your channel. That's good to know. So, unfortunately, I received this story about 3 weeks ago, and I don't read the stories until I'm actually ready to edit them and read them out. So this is the first time that I've read the story, or the second time, now that I'm reading it to you. And I only read the bit about meeting him for a beer So I'm presuming that he's gone back to wherever, back to Australia. So I have dropped him an email and say, look, the next time you're back in Thailand, give me a shout and we'll meet up and have a coffee or a beer or something like that. I do meet a lot of viewers. It's just all down to timing. But unfortunately, as I said, I hadn't read this email until the story until today. Right. OK. And just finally on that story, it's very, very good to hear a successful story. There are a lot of successful stories with relationships here in Thailand. Unfortunately, a lot of the stories that get sent in just happen to be the crash and burn stories that go wrong, but they seem to be a little bit more entertaining, don't they? Okay, let's jump into the third of four stories today. I was staying in the Khao Sun Road, Bangkok for a couple of days before going up to Kanchanaburi Bridge on the River Kwai. I kind of liked the backpacking district, Bang Lapu. It was not a case of saving money as the whole area is electric and you feel so alive. I had only 3 days left, so I wanted to cram in as much as I could. My routine was to drink cold beer during the day before popping into a massage parlour in the late afternoon before dinner. A half-an-hour oil massage was 350 baht. The massage lady was not that pretty, and judging her age mid to late 40s, it was obvious it was not her first rodeo. After a few minutes and some teasing, she suggested a fuller service, if you know what I mean. This is quite uncommon in this area, but it was in a private room and no other customers. I kind of anticipated this and had some loose notes in my pocket, and I grabbed my shorts and offered her 400 baht and explained that's all the money I had left. After several bouts of tutting and sighing, she got to work and all was good in the world. I felt great and had a skip in my step. After showering and changing clothes, I went to dinner on my own and had some street food. Many beers later, bar hopping, it was getting late. Around 1 a.m, it kind of slows down, but I found a live band that was quite good. The old favourites, Khao Sun Road classics. Thankfully, we were spared from the usual Hotel California that you normally hear 10 times a night. It went on to around 3 a.m, and I was still buzzing. Walking back to my guest house, some massage girls from an upmarket massage beauty parlour called me over to sit with them and chat on those tiny red plastic chairs outside in the road. The massage parlour was one of those communal bed ones in open view from the street and was geared up to the young backpackers, mainly women having their toenails painted or whatever they wanted to do. It was closed and the lights were out, but the Thais seemed to run on Duracell batteries 24/7. The manager wore a smart suit and spoke perfect English. The other girls wore a generic massage uniform. They appeared to always be grazing on nuts and snacks sold by street vendors. As soon as I sat down, they asked me if I would like a drink. As it was so late, I suggested it was impossible, but they quickly pointed to the 7-Eleven store. Of course, I was going to pay, but with cheap prices. I took a shopping list from all of the girls. Most had those small bottles of white wine and a few wanted beers. 2 girls came with me to carry all the shopping. It looked like no alcohol was allowed to be sold that time in the morning, but if you know the right people, it was okay. On my way out, I accidentally kicked over a beggar's can of change. Coins went flying and most went into the darkness. Naturally, Farang must pay, so I was told 100 baht was needed to compensate his loss. We drank several rounds and the light of the morning was approaching. We talked about the shop and I asked if any customers asked for more than just a massage. The manager explained some South Korean tourists insist, and there was a special room in the back. She pointed to a young Korean boy sitting across the road and said something in Thai. He burst out laughing and punched the air. I talked about my plans about going to Kanchanaburi in the morning, and it was a Friday night. They all asked if they could come with me. I took this as a joke and said, yes, of course, anyone is welcome, and got back a bellyache laughing session. The manager pulled me aside and said, seriously, I will go with you. I still thought she was joking and explained my girlfriend back home would not be pleased. As 12 hours of solid drinking had their toll on my senses, I said, yeah, all right. I still thought she would never really drop everything and drive 130 kilometers away just like that. She basically called my bluff. It was like a military operation. A Grab taxi magically arrived 30 minutes later, and I was whisked off to collect my belongings while she went back into the shop and got changed into her normal clothes. The sun was fully up now, and as the air-conditioned taxi was weaving its way through the morning rush hour and across the Pink Lao Bridge, I asked, feeling stupid, "I don't even know your name." It was a name I had asked several times, but I kept forgetting. It was a difficult name, so we agreed to abbreviate it to Singer. I know it's not very dignified to be called after a beer, but she thought it funny. As I was sobering up, she explained that I had agreed to pay for the accommodation, drinks and food, as Kanchanaburi was not an expensive destination. I reluctantly nodded. Completely guilt-ridden, I said, "No aerobics, absolutely no aerobics, separate beds and no touching." I had a girlfriend back home and I had to look her in the face on my return. After all, I went with the excuse of going to Thailand to jungle trek and relax with a good book drinking herbal tea. Arriving at a rather expensive floating guest house on the river she picked out, we got into our twin room. As I started unpacking, she went straight into the shower and promptly exited stark naked. Male chemistry took over, and within 2 minutes of getting into the room, she had made a move while I was standing up in an absolute shock, watching long tailboats speed past with screaming Thai day trippers from the open balcony. I could not move and was under her spell. I vaguely heard a cheer as the last boat hurled past me, creating a large bow-waving rock in the floating pontoons and sending me into quivers. I thought no aerobics, and she just shrugged and got dressed. That night we had a fantastic dinner overlooking the Kwai River while the sun was setting. Her appetite, like all Thais, is bottomless. She consumed incredible amounts of food and was not shy in ordering exactly what she wanted. After a few beers, watching the last red sky turn into darkness, we headed into town. We talked about her past, and she had a French boyfriend and a grown-up daughter. She said she is 51 but looked much younger, as they always do. She was very shrewd and streetwise, but I did not feel I was taken for a ride at this point. We went into the Aussie Rules bar, and all the jaded expats were comparing their latest hard luck story and doomed Private Fraser monologue. While we knocked back several large Leos, she suggested we visit her friend's bar. The place was a bar girl pickup joint, but I felt strangely superior to the other customers haggling for short time. Everyone seemed to know her. She brought drinks for the bar girls. To my horror, she got up and walked over to the bar bell. If this bell was ringing, the whole bar gets a free drink, at my expense. It was like slow motion as she reached up and tugged that bell like the bar was on fire. "No!" I cried, while freeloader tourists rushed from all directions, dived into the bar area and demanded their drinks. "What have you done?" She sat me down and said, "Relax, I'm paying." We later staggered out and got into a tuk-tuk and was racing across town to the Thai party street along the river past the Japanese road bridge. She stood up and leaned out of the tuk-tuk with her hands in the air. Her black hair was fluttering in the wind, her blouse was riding up. We went into this huge hangar-type nightclub full of young weekender Thais, with all their beer fountains and side dishes of unknown snacks. The live band was in Thai, but I really enjoyed it. Somehow, she managed to bag a table right below the stage. The band was very well known, and the lead singer with her blue hair really pumped it out. This was my second day of constant drinking, but for some reason, I was not getting drunk. On the way back, she blacked out in the tuk-tuk and I had to carry her into the guest house room. After a few mouthfuls of bottled water, she came to and got a little intimate. Her clothes seemed to fall off with little ease and tugging at my belt. Oh God, what have I got myself into? The next morning came all too quick, and before long we were back in Bangkok. I explained I had a flight the next morning, so wanted a nice hotel as one last treat and to get some good sleep. She wanted to come with me and said she could not go home because of some family quarrel. I again agreed, but reiterated I need to have a quiet night as I was exhausted. Naturally, this was never going to happen, and we were out again until 3 a.m. She seemed to recognise a lot of friends, and silly me had to pay the bill for drinks. Strange how they always order a large Heineken when they're not paying the bill. It got slightly edgy at one point with an argument between one of her colleagues about missing her shift, but soon was forgotten. I left the hotel around 5 a.m. while she was sleeping, but I think she was probably awake. I tiptoed towards the lift and made my escape. She never asked for any money, although she must have kept the room deposit of 500 baht, so I thought I had a lucky escape. In all, early 2024, I had spent 10,000 baht in 24 hours, including the accommodation, food, drink, and grab taxis. So overall, I was very pleased and relieved. Looking back, it was the most exciting weekend I've had for a long time. For obvious reasons, we left as complete strangers with no telephone or email addresses exchanged. I would say it's not the first time she's blagged a free weekend away, and I don't blame her. She could have robbed me or extorted more money, but she didn't. I took a calculated risk, and this could have really gone badly. I always think the worst in people, and this has kept me safe for many years, but maybe it's time to rethink. I now firmly believe in living for the moment. I'll cherish the good times as Thailand always delivers. So this is a guy that I actually met here in Bangkok a couple of months ago. And he wrote to me and said this story actually took place after our meeting, after we'd had lunch together. And he said he was heading off to Kanchanaburi. And I can't wait to meet the guy again so he can give me the gory details, because there's a lot more in a story than what you can read out in YouTube. But I would highly recommend, if you've not been down to Kanchanaburi before, where the bridge on the River Kwai is, it's a 2-hour trip. You can get minibuses, regular buses, taxis down there. I would highly recommend going down there for at least one night. The hotels are cheap. The river is absolutely beautiful to look at. You've got the history. There's a couple of museums down there, and it is a very, very good trip. Right, okay, I'm going to jump into our final story of the day. Now, I'll just let you know, for the moaning minis out there who complain, this story I have actually read out before in 2021. It's a very good story. Somebody told me the other day they remembered it and they liked it, so I thought I'd read it again. So once again, it is a repeat. I read it about 3-4 years ago, so you might recognize it. To anybody who's subscribed since then, you wouldn't have heard it, and it will be brand new to you. Okay, I am from a neighbouring country of Thailand, and I'm in my late 50s. I completed my O and A levels in the UK and completed my degree there. I am married with 2 children, and both are still in university. Admittedly, I was, and to a lesser degree, am still a monger, and had been to Laos to satisfy my monger and golf needs since the 1990s. I have travelled to Phuket, Bangkok, and most often to a small border town called Batong. I hope to give you and your followers my perspective of relationships by an Asian, which I believe would give you and your followers a more logical and perhaps a more plausible explanation as to why most, well, 99.9% of men, including yours truly, ends up with a crash and burn story with regards to relationships. I had a customer in Penang, Malaysia in the mid-1990s, and I had to travel and stay there at least 2 nights every week for about 5 years. After a few months, I discovered Batong was only about an hour or so away from my customer's factory. So based on the promises of nightly joy in Batong, I decided to stay in Batong every night whilst working at my customer's factory. Batong had about 5 go-go bars that were open from lunchtime till about 10 p.m, after which time many girls would go to the 2 discos in town until around 3 a.m. Most of the girls come from all over Thailand, including Bangkok, Isan, Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, etc. The go-go bars were different to those in Phuket and Bangkok. Rather than the girls asking for ladies' drinks, they drank whatever you were drinking, normally beer. They would ask for flowers. These were in fact a string of plastic pearls which cost Thai 100 baht. Each Thai flower system was adopted by many bars in my own country, where Thai and Chinese girls would dance or parade on stage. However, here a flower could cost at least $10 to as much as $500 each. Men would give these flowers for the girls to spend time with them after their dance or had been on stage singing. Rumour had it that some of the pretty girls could earn as much as $15,000 a month. Only a minority of the girls would spend the night with the customers, as this was illegal and enforcement was strict in this area. In addition, some girls from neighbouring countries were all here on tourist visas and, strictly speaking, were already working illegally. Most of the customers in Batong were from my country, and Farangs were few. There were even a handful of Russian girls working in Batong, along with a few dozen girls from China. There were no bar fines practised here, but overnight rates cost between 2,000 to 5,000 baht for the Russians, commonly paid directly to the girls and not the bar. Most of the bars were owned and run by my fellow countrymen, but I did learn that they all had local Thai partners. After going to Batong for a couple of months, I decided to try to hitch up with a girl as opposed to picking one up each night. I was there. I thought it would be nicer to develop a relationship with someone. I ended up with a pretty girl. Her name was Nap, and she was from Bangkok. I used to give her about 40,000 baht a month to help her family. Nap never asked me for more money or gifts. After about 3 months, she decided not to work anymore as a dancer and simply spent 2 or 3 days every week with me. Occasionally, she would come with me to Penang and stay there if I needed to be there. I would simply pick her up in my car at the border and drop her off when I headed back to the capital. The diversion cost me an additional 2 hours of travel time, which was not too bad. About a couple of years into the relationship, Nap called me and told me that she was pregnant with the offer of paternity test to prove I was a father. Being in love, I said that was not necessary, but I needed to let her know my limitations. So when we next met, I made it clear that since I was already married, I could never be officially the father of the child, i.e., my name could not be included in any document such as the birth certificate. I did, however, promise to pay for all her expenses. Nap went back to Bangkok a couple of months before the birth, but she was okay for me to continue to stay in Batong. Whenever I needed to visit my customer up north, I did meet with other girls there in Batong, but that was always only physical. No emotions were involved. Most of the girls knew Nap, but only a couple would not want to join me in my hotel. Anyway, about a month after the birth, Nap flew down to meet me and really tried hard to show that she missed me. A few months after this, I had to go to Nepal for some work and I decided to bring Nap along and so stopped off in Bangkok for one night before meeting up with her, the baby and her family before flying to Kathmandu the following morning. Honestly, the baby did not really look like me, but I never mentioned this to anyone. The baby looked a little like her sister's husband, who was a soldier. This guy would always be around whenever I visited her in Bangkok. He and her sister did not have children, and he seemed to be very close to my child. I was happy that there was someone that was looking after the baby, so I did not think too much about it. Nap would fly to the meet me every week when I was in town. Thank God for budget airlines. So this cost me about $100 for the flight. But there were times when Nap wanted to visit her friends in Batong, so I would simply drop her off at the border and pick her up the following week. About a year later, she told me that her friend wanted her to work in a restaurant she owned. I was told that the restaurant was in Bangkok. I said, sure, go ahead, earn some extra cash and perhaps could find some purpose in her life. She also said that because she was now working, there may be times she could not meet up with me whenever I visited my client. However, she said it was okay if I wanted to go to Batong. From this time on, almost all the time I expected her to fly to meet me. She said she wanted to save money by taking a bus from Bangkok down to Batong, and I could pick her up in my car on the way to see my customers. Whenever I go to Batong, I would park my car just before immigration and take a taxi into Batong. On one occasion, Nap said she could not meet me because there was a big function at her friend's restaurant. I had decided to spend a night in Batong. There was this taxi driver who knew both of us, and when he was driving me, he asked if I was not to meet Nap. I said yes. He took me to a small restaurant, and I'm almost certain I saw her sitting on one of the chairs. The taxi driver then went into the restaurant while I just sat in the taxi, not sure why I did that, probably because I did not want to know the truth. The taxi driver returned and said she was not there and then drove me to my hotel that was a 15-minute walk away. I called Nap from my hotel as I normally did and she insisted that she was working in Bangkok. Anyway, I ignored my suspicions and continued to visit my usual go-go bar. I met up with an older, very experienced lady who knew about Nap and was always honest with me. She told me that she had bumped into Nap in Batong with her girlfriend and Nap had asked her not to tell me she had seen her in Batong. She said she should not lie to me and that she and many other girls said I was a good guy and treated everyone politely, and so she felt that I needed to know the truth. I suppose I could have gone to the restaurant and confronted Nap, but I guess I was just a coward. The following day, when on the way back home, I called Nap and asked her again if she was in fact in Batong and not Bangkok. After a while, she finally admitted that yes, she had been in Batong and was working with her friend in the restaurant. She also admitted that she was having an intimate relationship with this girl. However, she would still meet up with me like before so long as I continued to finance her. Instead of simply calling it a day, I thought best to try everything I could to win her back. I told her that when I met her next, I would like to discuss our future. I met up with Nap in Bangkok about a month later and had planned to stay there for 3 days. I met her in my hotel in Bangkok and she was adamant about her love for the girl in the restaurant, but she was willing to stay with me while I was in Bangkok. Stupidly, I even offered a closer relationship if she was willing to live in Bangkok and look after the baby. I could see by the look on her face that she had no feelings for me at all. So the following morning I booked a flight home. A few months later, Nap asked to meet me again and she needed to go back to Bangkok. I agreed, and to cut a long story short, I was there this time to give her more money as the restaurant in Batong was failing. The jewellery and watch I had previously bought for her were no longer with her, and she admitted she had to sell all her belongings to try and keep the restaurant afloat. I gave her 10,000 baht and left Bangkok. About another 3 months later, I got a call from Nap saying that she would be working in a pub where I live. I met up with her and learnt that the restaurant business had failed and she had broken up with her lover and decided to work here. I guess she was hoping to develop another relationship with me, but I was too heartbroken and did not fall for her renewed charms. I think she worked here for about 3 months before finally heading back to Bangkok. The last thing I heard from her was that she was involved with a French guy. I wished her all the best and have not heard from her for a few years now. The important thing to keep in mind are, we're all on holiday, the girls are working, so the girls' primary objective is money and not love. Try to determine their main use for the money earned. Good reasons are family or some future business plan. Bad reasons are taking substances, boyfriends with bad habits or gambling. These girls with good reasons tend to be more honest and will look after you until you leave, while those with the bad reasons will always be trying to scam you out of even more money, gold and gifts. Try not to judge the girls or change them into something they can't become. Accept them for what they are and try to have a relationship with mutual respect. Never trust these girls with your belongings and don't leave things in your room which offer temptation to steal. When dealing with Thai men in bars and restaurants, try to treat them with respect like you would anyone else. One evening when I was having a drink with one of the doormen in a popular bar, he told me that he came from the same village as a girl that I liked in this bar, and that when he lived in the village, this girl was a man which had now had an operation to change him into a woman. So, had I not been friendly with the doorman, I might not have found out this information until it was too late. Before I met Nap, I had met a regular girl called Nantawan. I later discovered that she was an addict and was always looking to get high. She had asked me once in a 7-Eleven to buy her some sweets. I asked if she had a child. She said yes. One day after dancing, she asked me to go with her to her room to pick up some things and that she needed to give some food to her child. When in the room, she opened a cupboard where I saw some sweets, chocolates and toys that I had previously bought for her, but there was no child in her room. She later explained that she kept a ghost child in her room and he helps her whenever she asks for a wish to come true. Many Thai people believe in such practices. It is the same in my country and others in Southeast Asia, Africa and South America. Despite the fact people claim to be a Buddhist, Catholics or Muslims or Hindus, spiritual beliefs play a large role in these regions. Based on the above, it remains the only logical explanation as to why many, like I, end up looking stupid. So the next time any of your viewers visit Thailand, try to figure out what it is that the girl is getting out of your relationship other than financial support, and try to think of her needs and not just your own. Well, I think that was very well explained, and you could actually put those rules down with any girl that works in the entertainment industry here in Thailand. Very, very good advice there. Okay, that's it once again, guys. I'll end as I always do. If you're sitting on a story and you'd like to hear your story read out, I'll change names, I'll make it anonymous, and you too can hear your story read out right here on Thailand Bound. Thanks for listening again, and I'll be back literally in the picture next week. Have a good week, whatever you're doing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.